Good evening, my name is Julius Brown. Doing this presentation on the Zachman framework for the fulfillment of CIS 512. And my professor is Professor Alex Peters. Today I'm going to discuss the Zachman framework. The Zachman framework is an enterprise architecture which provides a formal and highly structured way of viewing and defining enterprise. The Zachman framework consists of two-dimensional classification matrix based on the intersection of 6 communication questions. And those questions are what, where, when, why, who, and how. The 6 questions come with 6 roles according to ratification transformation. It is an ontology applied in practice as taxonomy to organize enterprise architectural artifacts. The artifacts may include list, model, and diagram, etc., from high level of abstraction down to more detailed specification. With this being said, one will wonder, what is the meaning of the Zachman framework? It can refer to any of the frameworks proposed by John Zachman. For example, the initial framework named a Zachman framework for information system architecture by John Zachman was published in 1987. The Zachman framework was for enterprise architecture an update of the 1987 original one. It was extended and renamed in the 1990s. One of the later versions of the Zachman framework was offered by Zachman International as an industry standard. The framework is a simple and logical structure for classifying and organizing descriptive representation of the enterprise. It is significant to both the management of the enterprise and the stakeholders involved in the development of the enterprise system. The framework starts at a high level of detail, that is the business focus, and works down to final level of details, which is the information technology. Now, I gave you a brief history about the Zachman framework. During the 1980s, John Zachman was involved in the development of business planning at IBM. Now, business planning is a method of analyzing, defining, and designing information architecture of organizations. In 1982, Zachman had already concluded that these analyses could reach far beyond automating system design and managing data into the realms of strategic business planning and management science in general. In 1987, Zachman noted that the term architecture was used loosely by information system professionals and meant different things to planners, designers, programmers, communication specialists, and others. In searching for an objective, Zachman concluded that architecture exists on many levels and involves at least 3 perspectives. 1. Raw material, which is the data, the function or the processes, and location or the network. Note, information system architecture is designed to be a classification scheme, that is a taxonomy for organization architecture models. It provides a synoptic view of the models needed for enterprise architecture. Now, these frameworks have a set of rules that we're going to look at shortly. The framework set of rules include: 1. The columns have no order. In other words, the columns are interchangeable but cannot be reduced or created. Each column has a simple generic model. That means that every column has its own meta model. The basic model of each column, the relationship objective, the relationship objects, and the structure of it is unique. Each row describes a distinct, unique perspective. That means that each row describes the view of a particular business group and is unique to them. Each cell is unique. The combination, for example, of 2, 3, and 4 must produce unique cells where each cell represents a particular case. For example, A2 represents business output as they represent what are to be eventually constructed. And 6, of course, the integration of all sales models in one row constitutes a complete model from the perspective of that row. In other words, the logic is recursive. The logic is recursive, then the logic is rational between two instances of the same entity. Note, the framework is generic in that it can be used to classify the descriptive representation of any physical object as well as conceptual objects such as the enterprise. It is also recursive in that it can be used to analyze the architectural composition of itself. Although the framework will carry the relation from one column to another, it is still a fundamentally structural representation of the enterprise and not a flow representation. Let us consider some of the applications of the framework. The Zachman framework can be applied both in commercial companies and in government agencies. Within a government organization, the framework can be applied to an entire agency at an abstract level, or be applied to various departments, offices, programs, subunits, and even to the basic operational entities. Customization, the framework is applied in customized frameworks such as the TEAF, built around the similar frameworks, the TEAF metrics. The Zachman framework is also used as a framework to describe standards, for example, the healthcare and the healthcare information systems. We reached this level. Now I'm going to do a little summary of what we just went through. Each perspective focuses attention on the same fundamental questions and then answers those questions from the point of view, creating different descriptive representations. That is, the models which translate from higher to lower perspective. The basic model for the focus, which is product abstraction, remains constant. The basic model for each column is uniquely defined, yet relate across and down the matrix. In addition, the 6 categories of enterprise architectural components and the underlying integratives that this answer forms the columns of the Zachman framework, and these are: 1, the data description. Remember earlier we talked about the what. So when we talk about the what of the Zachman framework, we're looking at the description, the data description. After the data description, we consider the next thing, which is the function, and the function is the how. The next the network description is the where. The people description is the who, and the time description is the when. Now, the motivation description is the why. In the Zachman's option, the single factor that makes the framework unique is that each element on either axis of the matrix is explicitly distinguishable from all the other elements on that axis. The representations in each cell of the matrix are not merely successive levels of increasing detail, but actually are different representations, different in context, meaning, motivation, and use. Because each of the elements of either axis is explicitly different from the other, it is possible to define precisely what belongs in each cell. Thank you so much for watching, and this is a presentation of the Zachman framework from Professor Alex class, CIS 512, and I am Julius Brown.